What's up everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another video here. In this video specifically, I'm going to show you how to replace a screen on an iPhone 6S. As you can see here, the screen is terribly cracked. Let's show the camera down here. But it's relatively easy to fix. All you'll need is some tools, a replacement screen, and some patience. So let's get into it. All right, cool. So the first thing that you'll want to do is remove the Pentalobe screws at the bottom of the phone. In these packs here, you'll notice that you have a couple of screwdrivers. So if you get a replacement screen, you usually get these tools in a bag like this. And it's very important, again, you need to use the Pentalobe screwdriver. So if you look closely, I don't know how well you can see that. All right, anyways, it's hard to tell because these are extremely small, but if you look closely, this looks like a star. And so the bottom screws are called Pentalobe screws, which means if you use a normal Phillips head, you will strip it. So just be careful. We already removed one right here. Let's go ahead and move the other one. And we're good to go. So once we have the Pentalobe screws removed, we can now remove and start to pry open the front of this screen. As you can see, most of the screen is cracked. So we need to find a good point or good place on the phone to put a suction cup on there and slowly start to pry open the phone. So let's see what we can do here. So we have our little suction cup tool here, and we're gonna place it slightly above the home button. With one hand, we're gonna hold the phone tightly, and the other hand we're going to start to lift up the phone. And as you can tell, since there really isn't like a consistent flat surface here due to all the cracks, it's going to be a little bit challenging to pry open the phone. So I'm going to probably try to do it from this side, and really my goal with this is to just like pry it up just enough to get my little pick under the screen and slowly start to pry it around. So, you know, obviously for phones that aren't cracked this bad, it's not going to be as hard, but they can get pretty wonky. So this is where the patience comes in here. Damn, whose phone is this, bruh?
Mine.
Is it really? This is your old one?
All those broken ones are old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And worst case scenario, what we might have to do is just like literally start to pry off some of the glass to give us like a point of leverage here.
3 hours later.
We are back, everyone. So all it took was just prying off the glass a little bit, and we're making some headway here. So again, really, you just want to be patient with this because it's just, especially with this, like there's just so much glass. This guy like dropped it off the Empire State Building, so you know, it will not be a simple and easy fix. But with a little bit of patience and this pick here, I'll slowly start to pry it off. What I like to do is just like, once the pick's in there, just like wiggle a little left and right. Keep my like finger in there just in case, Jesus Christ, my voice cracked. And then just get the thing under there and then just like start wiggling. Start wiggling left and right until you like feel it coming off the frame. You can feel and hear when the adhesive is like loosening. So another thing that you can do if you're noticing that like it's like really hard to get off, you can just like take a blow dryer and start undoing it.
Because the heat will loosen the adhesive.
Exactly. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna want to do is disconnect the battery. So we're gonna take our Phillips head and start to remove the two screws connecting to the battery. What's important, I didn't do a good job there, but like to make sure that you have the right screws in place so that you can remember which screw is the left screw, which screw is the right screw. And I just like to get my fingernail in there. And we're in.
So you disconnect the battery so you don't get shocked, right? Just in case.
Yeah, short circuit too. Okay, the next thing that we're gonna wanna do is remove the plate here. And if you're not going to use this screen anymore, you don't have to worry about it, but you just want to be aware this thing not to like go all the way to the back, because these flex cables right here are extremely sensitive. But again, we're replacing the screen. We're just going to have to swap the home button on the new screen, and then we'll be fine. But just things to consider. Just got to be careful with those. All right, so let's start removing the plate screws. Cool, there's one. I'm gonna leave that here. And you'll notice what I'm doing is I need to have some sort of order for the screws, so I know, okay, this one goes at the bottom, this one goes at the top. And you'll see how I'll lay it out here as well afterwards. Now I'm gonna take off the shield. And I'll just like place it over the screws like that. So have like an idea of the placement. Then I'll go ahead and start unhooking connections here. I like to use this pry tool just so I can kind of get under the surface there. Boom. So there should be 3 connections, one there, and this one right here. Perfect. So this is actually good, because if the screen was like really cracked, then, you know, it would be a pain in the arse to get rid of that. And so now what we're gonna do is just make sure there's no glass in here. We can put that aside for now. And then now what we need to worry about is removing the home button. So when Touch ID came out as a feature and we were to replace this screen, in order for the Touch ID feature to continue working, we need to use the same home button that came stock with the phone. So let's take a look at our replacement one, which is over here. Did this come with a home button? It did. So if we were to take this screen, which is the replacement one, and put it as is, the Touch ID functionality would not work. The home button would work, but as far as using your thumb to unlock the phone and get in, it would not work. We need to swap the home button. So that's what we'll do, is we'll swap this home button with this one, and then we can go ahead and just put it back in and close her up, and that'll be a wrap. So carefully, we have to remove the shield, which has 3 Phillips head screws in it. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to move the glass a little bit out of the way here and slowly start to unscrew. Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the shield here a little bit. And once we have the shield removed, this is a little tricky. There's like a little connection here that's sort of like flipped over. So we have to like pop it over and then we can lift it up. So it's kind of like this. So we just need to pry our tool to open it, and then we can remove it from the housing. So you could use your fingernail. I just like to use these things because they're like very fine point, and I could just kind of like weasel in here. So again, it's just boom, just like that. And then what you'll want to do is you don't want to just yank and pull this up, because these cords are really sensitive. So instead of pulling it from here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to push from the front of the phone. And then once that is up, I'm going to pull from the actual home button slowly, boom. Cool. So now this right here is pretty much dead. If the screen wasn't as cracked, I would say save it and sell it in aftermarket, because if the digitizer still works, aka the screen, and it still moves around, there are actually companies in China that will literally remove this and put a new glass on it. So there is some value to this. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're gonna take our replacement screen and we're going to do the same thing and remove the housing, connect the old home button, and then all we'll need to do is just connect the phone back to the motherboard, put the battery back in, close her up, put the Pentalobe screws in, and that's it. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. All right, so now we are in the process of removing the home button shield and home button from the replacement screen, because as mentioned earlier, we need to replace the old screen, or excuse me, the old home button in order for the Touch ID functionality to work. This is important because if you want to sell the phone and people want to use the Touch ID, which I'm pretty certain that's why people got the phone, then you want to make sure that works. Not a deal breaker if it breaks or anything, but it's part of the phone's functionality. So same thing here. This one's going to be a little bit harder. And again, the trick here is try to pull it out. This one shouldn't be bad. Perfect. Now we're going to throw this in. This is the old home button. Place it in the housing. Make sure everything fits snug. And what you want to do is look closely. There's a hole here, right there. And you want to make sure that sits in with like the little stick that's standing up. And then we want to connect the home button here. And you'll hear a nice little snap. Perfect. Flip it over, see how it looks. Everything looks okay so far. Now what we're gonna do is go back here and cover it back up. So again, take your time with this. The placement of the screws is really helpful when you start to put everything back in. Now, most places in the mall will charge you probably like $1.50 or something to get this done. It's nice if you can learn how to do it yourself. The hardest part is always like getting it in. So what you'll want to do is like place it on the screwdriver and then carefully, put it in, give it some force downwards, and just slowly start to tighten it until you feel it tight enough, and that's it. You don't want to like overdo it. So then if yours will most likely have the film here, since we're going to be closing the phone up, we'll want to remove this, because if we don't remove it now, it's going to be hard to remove it once the phone is already closed. So you can remove that. And I'm clicking the home button to see if like it's clicking, giving feedback. Seems to be working fine. And then now we're going to bring up our motherboard and the rest of the unit here. You'll want to, let's see, there's 3 connections here. I like to start from bottom down. So there's like layers to this. So this one is the first one. So I'll see if I can get it in there. So you'll be able to feel it once it's in. You'll feel it grab, and it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to explain. You kind of have to move it around, push it in a little bit, if not adjust. So it's like teeth. They have to like male and female cords, they have to like sort of like fit in perfectly, or they won't fit at all. So you'll know, you'll feel, you'll hear it. Again, you want to be careful, because if I bend these too much, then it's basically going to break the cord. So what I want to do is either have someone help you kind of like hold this with one hand, or what you can do is, what I like to do is like just grab an object. So if you have something like this, you can place it here. Let's get this out of the way. And then that way this will sit like perfectly like that, and I save myself from holding it. So now I can spend my time getting the screws in nicely on the plate. Cool. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to test the phone. So we're going to plug the battery back in. All right, so the next thing that you'll want to do is line up these sort of like bevels at the top of the phone underneath the top of the frame here. I don't know if you can see them. So it's going to look something like this, where we kind of nuzzle it in there from the top. Perfect, just like that. And then we're going to push it up and maintain that pressure. And then close the phone up like so. So again, it goes like up, in, hold, and then push down. And you want to make sure that everything is flush on the side. Cool, everything looks good. And then the last part here is sew it up. My favorite part is when you're done and you have to just put in these 2 Pentalobe screws. So again, make sure you're using the Pentalobe screwdriver. And these don't need too much pressure or force to tighten, and you don't want to strip it. So once it starts to tighten up, you'll be good to go. Same thing with this one here. And just like that, you have a brand new screen replacement on your iPhone 6S. So thanks for sticking around, and we will catch y'all in the next one.